$1 million in revenue isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion in revenue. My guest today has led sales teams that have generated over $1 billion in revenue. Stick around to hear his secrets on today's episode of This Week in Sales. Hello and welcome to today's episode of This Week in Sales. I'm Kevin Gaither, the CEO and founder of Inside Sales Recruiting. You may recall our goal here on the show is to help sales professionals with tips and tactics and techniques to help them improve their performance right now. My guest today is Vince Thompson, the founder of Middle Shift, a digital revenue consultancy. Vince, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Vince, tell me about your nightmare sales call. We've all had them.
Nightmare sales call. I actually have a story, and I learned a lot from this one. So, I was selling television advertising in Monterey, California, and I was calling on a nursery, and I was just really getting started. I was pretty excited. So I walked into the nursery, and I walked across to the back, and I found the owner. He was putting away some pots and things, and I said, "Hey, I'm Vince Thompson, and I'm with KCCN TV, and television's really a great way to grow your business." And I gave my whole pitch. He listened, just kind of in pain, right, listening to my pitch, and says, "All right, hey, thanks a lot. I'm not interested," right? So I started walking away, and I got almost to the door, and he yelled back at me, hey, wait a sec, I got a question for you." I said, "Oh, great, maybe he's interested." So I started coming back across the floor, and I got back over to him, and he said, "Ask me if I have any co-op dollars." Well, that was good news, right? Because co-op dollars are manufacturer dollars that help people do advertising campaigns. So I go, "Great, do you have any co-op dollars?" He says, "No, I just didn't want you coming back asking me later."
Oh my God.
And what I realized was, this poor guy, he probably had 40 television, cable, and radio sales reps coming to him all day long. And he knew our pitch better than we knew our pitch. And he was just trying to make sure that I didn't call him later.
Oh my God, that is a nightmare.
It taught me you've really got to differentiate yourself. And you've got to go with their needs first and come in with a better lead line than what you have to sell. So I learned a lot, but that was a good one.
Good. Well, in the same vein as learning here, I'd like to allow our audience to learn a little bit more about you, so I'm going to introduce you properly this time around. Vince Thompson is an author and a consultant who has led teams responsible for selling over $1 billion in interactive advertising. With his firm Middle Shift, Vince and his partners have assisted in major media company turnarounds as well as participating in launching revenue operations for over a dozen new companies, including Break.com, we all know them.
Big success.
Gum Gum, Total Beauty, Michael Eisner's Vaguru, Participant Media's TakePart.com, and many more. And prior to his consultancy, Vince spent 7 years at AOL, where he was a regional vice president of sales as well, ran the national sales training organization. He also served as an early executive at Facebook. Wonderful. His book, Ignited, was a bestseller in 2007. He's also a contributor to the widely adopted textbook Media Selling, and serves regularly as a keynote speaker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great background here
Pleasure
for us
to
to
be
talk.
here. Perfect show for me to come on.
This Week in Sales, absolutely.
My passion.
Exactly. Well, mine too. And I'd love to get into some higher level topics that I know a lot of people take for granted out there. Today we're going to talk about some sales, what sales strategy means, essential components of a commission or a compensation plan. I get this question a lot, and I'm sure you do as well.
Right.
So we hope to leave the audience with some, like I said, some real tips and tactics to take away in 30 minutes and put into place right out of the gate here.
Right on.
So let's talk about the big umbrella, sales strategy. We all talk about a sales strategy. What does a sales strategy mean to you? And what are the essential components of a sales strategy?
Sometimes that's bounced around a lot like the word value equation. Oh, the value equation. It actually is a value equation. There's actually a mathematical expression of it. Same thing as a sales strategy. The sales strategy really needs to take form as a document that spells out exactly what you're doing and what you're going to do. And it's, who's the customer? And what do we sell them? And what kind of value do we create for them? What problem are we trying to solve for them? How do we go about doing that? How do we deliver that message? How do we communicate it? Who makes the decision at the customer side? How do we resource against it? What kind of sales do we expect to do related to that customer? What's the marketplace look like? How are you approaching it? So it's a detailed document, and one of the things that I really encourage people to do is to not do it in PowerPoint. Because a lot of time what we do is we bullet point things. We want to do easy answer. Give me the bullet points, give me the framework, give me the wireframe, or throw it in a PowerPoint. And what it does is it allows us to do the thing that we oftentimes do, and that's that we bullshit ourselves. We really bullshit ourselves. We have an idea of something, and we're good at talking and telling the story, but we're going to hold ourselves as accountable. And there's something magical that happens when you have to sit down and write out a sales strategy in a narrative form. Because when you're writing that sentence, you ask yourself, do I really believe what I'm putting down? Do I really know that this is true? How do I find out it's true? And it forces you to commit things to paper that you otherwise would say with ease, but in black and white means something a little bit different. And that's the process of creating a sales strategy. I think it's incredibly valuable. And if you go through that and then you keep refining it, it's an amazing way to guide your company.
At what point, though, does an executive, either a CEO of their startup or a VP of sales, delineate and stop at the tactical? So, hey, develop our sales strategy, and let's say they go through this process and they document all the things that you had indicated, that ideal customer profile, the buyer persona, the resource allocation, down the list of the things that you'd mentioned, which I'm going to ask you to repeat again slowly.
Sure.
But how are you then suggesting then we should get detailed into the tactics, which is kind of getting away from the strategic? I mean, we talk about strategy versus tactical. What are your thoughts there? When do you stop?
Well, the rubber has to meet the road, and you have to know how to do this. And so at the end of the day, what you're really doing is you're working with customers, you're figuring out what their needs are, then you're coming back to your company. You're either taking the current product set you have and you're matching against those needs and you're transacting for revenue and building a relationship that goes on forever, we hope, or you're innovating your products to meet the needs of those customers. In order to do that, there's a lot of stuff that happens along the way. Who sits in the car? What direction does the car go? What building does it stop at? Who do they call on? How many calls can they do each week? These type of things, you could drive yourself crazy, right? I don't want anybody to sit in their office for 3 months and try to write a revenue plan, but you should spend 3 or 4 solid days and try to answer these questions, and then as you get better, continually go back to them and hone this. And that forcing mechanism helps you get there. So listen, is it the problem with so much of business is that we kind of stay up in the strategic, and all the people running the company want to feel like they're really intellectual and really strategic. At the meantime, the people at the bottom of the company don't know what to do. So we've got to figure out how to connect a vision down to something that we can measure and that we can optimize and that we can be good at. And so that's really the role of a revenue chief in their business department. Same way a product engineer, but it's their role to figure that stuff right out down to the street.
Good.
Yeah.
I love to hear that, because I definitely hear the converse, and that no, when you're talking sales strategy, just stay high level.
Sure.
Stay high level. But I love that you're advocating to get down to the tactical, get down to the things that you can actually measure, because they should all roll up and support that strategy down to the, hey, you need X amount of meetings per week to accomplish this particular sales strategy. Because if you don't do that, the individual contributors are going to wonder what the heck to do, and how do you hold them accountable if you don't do those things, right?
Yeah.
So wonderful, good. I want you to repeat back to our audience, please. Just give me 4 or 5 of those bullet points of the essential components of a sales strategy. Something they can write down right now.
Well, and a lot of this is part of the business plan, right? But what do you sell? Who do you sell it to? What problem are you solving for them? I like to always include part about the competition. What are their other choices, and what is the competition offering? And then, what does the marketplace look like? Who are you going to sell this to? That's the go-to-market strategy, really. Because you might have a product that you're taking out, especially if you're working in a startup environment, you might see 3 or 4 different addressable markets. So you've got to make a choice with limited resources. What market do you start at? So you test. You test and you learn and you see where you get traction, and then you put your resources there until you can generate enough money to fuel a bigger organization to open up the other categories.
Right.
And so all of that stuff should really go into your plan. I'm not asking anybody to write a book, but I think a good revenue strategy for an organization should be a 10 to 25 page document that outlines those things and put some numbers behind them, and forces a process, and everybody's got to buy into it. So if you're managing sales managers, managing salespeople, you got to get everybody's input in a document. You got to keep playing with it and taking it back and forth till you get it there.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a great process. Though.
There you go. Keeping it dynamic is certainly an important component to that, and making sure that you're making your theme is in line with where you really want to go, and it's got to be reactive as opposed to what I think a lot of leaders out there do is say, okay, I'm going to write this plan and we're going to stick to this plan.
Sure.
Be flexible and be dynamic, because frankly your customer is going to change their opinion.
Yeah, Eisenhower said plans are nothing, planning is everything.
Yeah.
So it's the process of just continually looking where you're going.
Excellent.